Hey folks, BlackCross here, and welcome to another video. This one I wanted to talk a little bit about GameStop. And reason why I wanted to talk about GameStop in today's video was because, well, an unfortunate event is coming up. According to what is stated, I looked it up recently, but according to what GameStop in my town has stated in the news, is that on March 21st, they will be closing down their store in Crossville, Tennessee. Now, there's also a number of other stores that will be closing their stores in other places. But the one that I have in Crossville, the only one that I've got, is closing its doors. Now, of course, I know there's a lot of people out there who have talked about GameStop. You know, in most news and information and stuff like that, there's been scummy practices that GameStop have done in the past. But of course, you know, these particular practices are usually carried through not only by the CEO and higher staff members, but also too by their management. So the individual employees should not be the fault, but instead should be the higher management team in terms of what you would call, or at least what I would like to call, abusive sales, per se. But of course, you know, when it comes down to it, my GameStop, as well as some of the other local GameStops that I've went to, they've never been bad in my personal opinion. I've never really had a quote-unquote bad experience, you know. My term of a bad experience is whenever a particular employee was so, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Very aggressive when it comes down to it, you know, like, for example, if I was by myself in the store and they kept following me, telling me and being like, did you know we have a sale going on? Did you know you can get 5% off on this and that? Do you know that we can do pre-orders and stuff? And it's like literally that scene from Arisco where it's like, you know, type thing. And it's just like, it's literally that. But thankfully, in terms of the GameStop that I've went to, I've never had that level of an issue. You know, there has been what you might hint at as aggressive sales, but really it's been more sales geared towards my area rather than just throwing in random sales stuff and everything like that. You know what I mean? For example, perfect example is actually in my local GameStop. You know, I would go there once a month, you know, because, you know, it's right there. No reason for me to abuse the fact that GameStop's right there and go every week. But instead, I would go in there once a month, you know, see if there's anything new and whatever and stuff like that. Well, at the time, the manager that owned that particular store recognized me. Not in terms of YouTube videos or whatever, but rather he would recognize me appearing there a lot more often, especially considering what I normally wear. He figured, hey, he's a big fan of Kingdom Hearts, so that must mean he's also a big fan of JRPGs and stuff of that nature. So let's try to gear sales towards that particular person with that area of genre, you know? And that's the strategy ideal. That's really a core strategy ideal. You know, don't sell everything to one person. Sell something that they would be interested in, you know? A perfect example is actually, you know, like I said before, me being a fan of Kingdom Hearts and stuff, the manager asked me, said, so I know you're a big fan of Kingdom Hearts, and I said, that is true. He said, well, we got a bunch of pre-orders that's going to be coming in terms of Kingdom Hearts related pop figures. Would you be interested in doing a few pre-orders with that? And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll do a couple pre-orders. And I looked at their list of pop figures that they were going to get into the store, and I pre-ordered me like 2 pop figures at the time. But of course, nothing more than that, you know, just, again, because of that particular area of expertise, I didn't see it as abusive. I saw it as like, you know, I got some form of memorabilia that I love, you know, being out of Kingdom Hearts, and they got to have a sale, an improved sale, from a customer that shops there regularly. So, I mean, you know, it wasn't a bad experience per se. So, for some people, they might feel as though as if it might have been aggressive, but the reality is, it's more of planned strategy rather than anything. The sad thing is, too, is that GameStop is falling drastically, despite the changes that is going on. For those that don't know, GameStop had a number of headline stories that was going on. For example, Reggie Fils-Aimé, the former president of Nintendo of America, joined in the chair, one of the director chairman of GameStop, and in order to help GameStop build itself up. And from what I've heard, there were several new managers, appointed managers that showed benefits towards GameStop. In other words, people that could help perfect GameStop and rebuild itself from the ground up. But with my GameStop closing, I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. I don't know if that could save them. Now, I'm not saying that we should have a GameStop in every town. No, that's freaking bombastic. But it is kind of unfortunate that, despite, finally having a GameStop here in town, there wasn't enough sales to incorporate that particular GameStop to stay open, which is unfortunate because I actually like to go in there from time to time, every once in a while I go in there and I would find something, Although I'm not going to deny whenever I say this, the decline has kind of decreased to a number of degree. For example, number one, despite the fact that they have shirts, they almost never have it in my size. I was lucky enough if they had it in a 2X, and I could probably pull off a 2X and actually stretch it, but if you guys know me, I'm more of a 3X guy. Mostly because of the fact that, it fits better, it's a lot more looser and stuff like that. But a 2X I could probably get away with at times, but 3X is preferably. And really, GameStop shirts, they never go above 2X, and you'd be lucky enough to find one 2X shirt. Sadly, for me, it was almost never. Then again, it also doesn't help the fact that technically most of the memorabilia stuff was a bit pricey. For example, I was tempted about getting this particular PlayStation-themed Christmas sweater. I mostly never wear a sweatshirt or a long sleeve. You usually see me with short sleeves and stuff, except for whenever I get really, really cold. So I was kind of like, hey, Christmas sweater. I've always wanted one of these. And then I looked at the price tag and I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, price, when it comes down to pricing, it makes sense. You have to sell it somehow or another. But it's one of those things where it's like, if it's a little bit too rich for my blood, unfortunately. I think at the price that I saw it, it was priced at like $69.99. A whole themed Christmas sweater. And I was like, oh dear Lord Almighty. Now, I admit, there are some stuff that I would have liked to have had, but there was other stuff that I was like, yeah, but is it something that I need now, or could I easily find it elsewhere, And again, it kept going more and more as GameStop continued trying to keep up with stock, trying to keep up with sales and everything like that. And sadly, right now is not looking good for GameStop at the moment. Now, right now, there was a time where GameStop was changing itself. It was changing in order to help bring itself back from what it destroyed in order to make it better, There was that initial retro initiative saying that they were doing and everything like that. And while, for the most part, it's been terrible, but most recently, they started to have a rescission and started to improve. There was even a fact that there was a couple of GameStops in other towns where they were actually selling retro titles. And I would have loved that our GameStop actually had retro games. I would have loved to have known that or at least seen it, I mean, yeah, they could order it for you, but I would love to actually have seen retro titles, not a big selection, but, like a small glass case shelf full of retro titles that you can look at, and maybe one day you would see something that you don't normally could find, and it'd be right there, just a retro title, I'm not asking for much, I'm just asking for subtlety, something subtle. But unfortunately, my GameStop didn't have that. If you were one of those people who had a GameStop that had retro games in there, and when I say retro, I mean like, anything past PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and Wii, of course, We're talking like the old cheese stuff, like PS1s, N64, Xbox, original Xbox titles. I can't believe I'm having to stop myself for a second and be like, no, wait, not Xbox One, Xbox original. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. The point is actual retro titles. Of course, there was a time period where there was plans being made to where they could, make like a gamer lounge, where you could look at the game, play for an hour at most, try it out and everything like that, and if you liked it, you actually bought it on that same day, And I liked the ideal premise, and there was actually photos that was being taken of one of the beta stores that was making this shift, and I actually liked it how it looked, and I actually thought to myself, with the size of our GameStop, they could actually do really well with it. This actually would be a very beneficial plan if GameStop would have went with it a little bit more. Because for those that don't know, at the time that my GameStop opened, at the time they classified that was the third biggest GameStop store in the US. And I was like, what's the biggest, And then again, that particular store used to be a Blockbuster. That's ironic, isn't it? It used to be a Blockbuster, now it's gone, and now it's a GameStop, and now it's gone. So it won't be long before there might be another media store being put in place, and within a few years' time, it might be gone. So won't that be weird? It used to be a Blockbuster, now it's a GameStop, and now nothing at the moment. There hasn't been. I say there won't be anything for a couple of years. Then again, Crossville, Tennessee in particularly is a ghost town for stuff, and it's kind of unfortunate. It sucks, really it does. So, but it's just one of those things where I was like, I hate that GameStop is having to go through this, because recently there was like a big splurge going on in terms of Wall Street, what with the whole like GameStop stock started to pick up and everything like that. And to the normal consumer, they would think that if the stock prices for GameStop was going up, that means GameStop could bounce back from this, right? That they would improve. But here's the thing. It would be one thing if those investments stay. No, these were constantly being traded back and forth, and the price kept going up and up and up, and eventually it actually stopped at a freeze point. For those that don't know, I highly recommend that you guys check out why GameStop went through this whole rescission with Wall Street and everything like that, because it's kind of interesting. It's not even involved GameStop in particularly. It more or less involves like a bet with higher tier stockholders, and then you have like the smaller class of stockholders trying to raise up the price for GameStop and overthrow their bidding practices and stuff. And it has nothing to do with saving GameStop, actually, in all honesty. It really didn't. And I think it's because of that will ultimately hurt GameStop even more so. We've had this decline for GameStop for about the past, I want to say, 5 or 6 years. It's been kind of a decline for a long period of time, and then like in the past 3 years, it started to rapidly go down, and now what just recently happened, it won't be long before it will be completely gone. Unless a miracle happens, and I have to say, a miracle, it's going to be one hell of a miracle if they can pull off something. I don't know what it is, but they're going to have to figure something out. Whatever that is, it won't be long before GameStop will be gone. They'll be gone. But before I end the video on that topic, I do want to go ahead and show you some of my last purchases for this particular GameStop. Now, I don't know what other remaining GameStop will stay open. I know technically in Cookeville there are still like 2 GameStops there. In Knoxville there are 2 GameStops there. But who's to say how long they will be open? It won't be long before both places will have only 1 GameStop, and then it won't be long before, depending, one, if not both, will be completely gone. You never know. This is just coming from my town, not so much everywhere else, but you never know. So, allow me to show you some of the purchases I've made for the last time at my local GameStop. So, first up, we have Human Fall Flat Anniversary Edition. Now, technically, this was a PC release, technically, but they made a console version release of Human Fall Flat. And it's kind of interesting, I've been interested in a game called Game Beast, which is I guess you might call it a local/online multiplayer game, where you're just beating the living daylights out of each other and stuff like that. If you've ever seen the gameplay of Game Beast, you're probably familiar with Human Fall Flat then. It's basically that, except more of a platforming hellhole. And while I might not be a big fan of platforming, I do kind of like how the movement sets and everything like that is in Human Fall Flat. Plus, the number of levels is actually kind of interesting. It's basically its own platform puzzle adventure, and I kind of like it. So I was like, you know what, if I ever get a chance to purchase it at a very low price, I'll probably give it a try. Sure enough, with GameStop, with their, you know, 10%, 30%, and so on and so forth sales that they got going on in my local GameStop, I was like, now's a good time to stack up on that one. So, but the next one I grabbed is Control. And at first, I was hesitant on this one. I wasn't really interested in it. But ever since it came out, I believe it's got like a re-release update on the PS5. A lot of people have been talking about this game, and I have to say, after seeing gameplay footage of Control, I'm actually kind of interested with it now. It definitely looks interesting. It's one of those things where it's like, again, it's fun going back into a game that you wasn't interested in and finding out that, hey, it brings you interest now, so you might want to try it out. And especially considering the fact that it was actually a low price for me as well. Space Hulk Deathwing Enhanced Edition. I've been familiar with the Space Hulk series. It's sort of like a turn-based RPG franchise. You know, sometimes they go traditional turn-based, and sometimes they actually do action in some cases. I didn't actually look into the gameplay mechanic of this one yet, but I figured with it being a low price that it is, I figured give it a shot and see what it's like. And then finally, one other PC release game, but came out for console, is Bendy and the Ink Machine. Now, for those that don't know what Bendy and the Ink Machine is basically a, I like to call it a horror survivor game with interesting theming behind it. The particular theming behind this one is the fact that, you know, you have a retro cartoonist, or retro cartoon here, being that of Bendy. And, you know, you have the ink machine that causing all of this, or tormented souls and stuff like that. And it's just, I only saw one part of one person's Let's Play, and I was actually fascinated by it. I was like, this actually looks pretty good. I'm not going to deny it. It's not so much the horror theme that interests me. What interests me is obviously, you know, being that of retro cartooning. You know, it's sort of the same way of how, like, you know, Cuphead was interesting. You know, the fact that, you know, it was a very hard game, but I loved the art style that I had. Bendy and the Ink Machine is that same way. You know, I may not be a big fan of horror survivor games, but I love the theming behind it. And it's definitely something I was interested in getting whenever I found out it came out for consoles. And sure enough, they had it in my GameStop, thankfully. Well, anyway, guys, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think is going to be the ultimate future for GameStop? Could they rescission? Could they come back? Could they be reborn, perhaps, maybe? Maybe there might be a chance that someone could buy them and they'll change from GameStop to something else, something game-related, you know? I would actually like it if we could get what GameStop was planning on in the future when it comes to GameStop, you know. It looked interesting, but whether or not they could survive at this rate, it's hard to say right now, especially what with COVID-19 going on and stuff like that. And it's hard to say. So right now, table's kind of all bunched up and everything like that. And right now, they're just kind of picking through and everything like that. And it won't be long before we'll finally see the full realization that could save GameStop. But if they don't, it might be too late, and we might see GameStop officially close. So hopefully that's not the case. I hope they come back, but only time will tell. So thank you so much, guys, for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. This is BlackCross signing off. Catch you guys later.